Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is easily one of the best Mission Impossible movies, and that's coming from somebody who is very much considered a casual fan of this franchise. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is an American spy action film directed by Christopher McQuarrie from a screenplay he co-wrote with Erik Jendresen. It's the sequel to Mission Impossible Fallout from 2018, starring, of course, Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt, whose IMF team are confronted by a mysterious, all-powerful foe known as the Entity. Now, with the announcement that this film was going to be shot back-to-back with its sequel, a lot of fans were wondering if this was going to be Tom Cruise's last outings or last couple of outings as Ethan Hunt. And then recently he came out and said that he hopes to be playing the character up until he was 80. Now, maybe he's just over-exaggerating because he sees Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford going on so long. And of course, who wouldn't want to see Tom Cruise play this character for that long? Only could hope the best for him. This movie, though, has an estimated budget of $291 million. It is one of the most expensive films ever made and the most expensive in the franchise, which is pretty crazy. When just a couple of days before seeing this film, I saw the very first Mission Impossible movie for the first time. I'll be putting out a review just in a couple of days, so make sure to come back for that. Overall, I think this was a great Mission Impossible movie. If this is your franchise, I think easily you could consider this in the top 3 to top 5 in the franchise that has really been consistent from the start. I'd say maybe other than the second one. Obviously, it's subjective from there on out, but for me, for the most part, who's, like I said, a casual fan, someone who I haven't seen all of the Mission Impossible movies. Like, I missed the last one, Fallout, but I've seen all the others, and I didn't ever get started on this franchise until around the 3rd or 4th movie, so I was even late from the get-go. So, very much a casual goer. But I will say, the writing was excellent, the action was great, the stunts were, of course, everything you would come to expect from a Mission Impossible movie. There's a scene from the trailer, I won't give it away, but there's a stunt that Tom Cruise does in this movie that just had me on the edge of my seat, that just made me getting anxious for him, even though I know he lived and I know he did it. It was the scene that if you paid attention to the movie, it was the very first scene they shot from the movie, just in case things went wrong. They didn't want to waste everybody else's time. That scene was absolutely amazing and actually kind of reminded me of the ending of the very first Mission Impossible movie. As pretty much every Mission Impossible movie, pretty much after the 3rd movie, the later films, the cast is truly great. There's not anyone in this film I would have taken out or have recasted. I think everyone brought a significant different role to the mix. The soundtrack by Lorne Balfe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, was heavy and really carried some of the more emotional scenes and really even some of more of the quieter scenes or some of the bigger scenes. So I'm really glad they got to bring him back. Of course, when it comes to suspense, the hand-to-hand combat, the cinematography, the practical effects, the CGI, and actually some of the comedy, they nail it. The thing that I would say that holds this movie back is that, like I said, the writing is truly good. I do think it is clever. I do think that once you've seen the film without giving away any spoilers, you know what kind of film you're going to be getting. And when you get to the ending, there is some twists and turns, and you don't exactly know where everything's going to be going. But once you get to where you're going to be going, and it is a part 1, so part 2 could blow this part out of the water, who knows. But I do think there is a sense of just the fact that a few of the previous films just were a little more clever. I think there was just a little more juice in the writing. I think it was a little more shocking, a little more, some of the twists and the turns just felt a little more epic, a little more emotional and bigger in scale, and overall just more shocking. Whereas in this film, I do think not not that I could see anything coming necessarily, but that the ones that did come or the twists that did come didn't hit me as emotionally as I think that the film was trying to at certain times. Not that it felt like a low-hanging fruit, not that it was reaching or that it didn't deserve it, but just that compared to some of the other films, just didn't quite execute it just as much as I had wanted it to. There was a lot of characters in this movie, but that's nothing new to a Mission Impossible movie. But Tom Cruise does give a different kind of performance, at least to me, in this movie. A much more somber, kind of lowered. Not that he's ever super erratic in this role by any means, but I do think that there was a little bit of a different vibe to his character in this movie, and it might just be with his age, I don't know. But I went into this movie pretty cold. I saw maybe the first trailer, thought, yeah, that looks good, I'll see it when it comes out, and I totally forgot that Hayley Atwell was even in this movie. It was great to have Simon Pegg, of course, because I'm a huge Simon Pegg fan. Christopher McQuarrie, I like his films more and more as each new film of his comes out. And Tom Cruise, he was born to play Ethan Hunt. I mean, there's nobody else that could ever play Ethan Hunt. I do wonder what the future of this franchise is going to be, as well as, you know, the longevity of this franchise. How many more films can they do with Tom Cruise flying off of spaceships or whatever, you know, jumping off of buildings, holding off of airplanes, helicopters, flying off of cliffs, whatever it may be? How long can this keep up? And, you know, this was never a shtick and I mean that in a good way. It was never a thing in the earlier films. And I don't think it necessarily needs to be a thing in the Mission Impossible movies for them to be successful. But it does raise some questions. I do wonder for the longevity of Tom Cruise's own health. That's certainly up to him. But once he retires from the role, what happens when they move on? Or maybe Ethan Hunt moves up to an executive character when he's in his 80s or in his 90s, whatever. Unless he's still doing stunts, who knows? But will a character, I'm not saying Hayley Atwell's character, but for instance, maybe a Hayley Atwell type of character, is that sort of character going to be the future of this franchise? There's a lot of questions going forward. I'm sure part 2 will answer some of that. And they already said they're working on past Dead Reckoning Part 2. But at the end of the day, I do think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a solid Mission Impossible sequel. It is everything that the hype said it was going to be. Everybody, Christopher McQuarrie, Tom Cruise, delivered. All of these side characters perfectly supported the rest of the film. Nobody was an annoyance. Nobody stood out as a misplaced character or a miscast member. The soundtrack perfectly blended in with the movie and really had an emotional undercurrent that really carried the film beautifully, and also was very epic. Had some great emotional moments and as well as some very comedic moments. A great sequel. Still not my favorite Mission Impossible movie, although I could see why a lot of people might think that it is the best one or their personal favorite, and I could see why. But that is all I got for you guys. What are your thoughts down in the comments below? I'd love to see it, and thank you very much for watching. Until next time, bye-bye.